What's going on, everybody? It's ZachMichael here. Today, I'm going to be showing you how I create unique R&B drum bounces and how you can do this too. Something I see a lot of is people want to start branching out in other genres and creating R&B, and sometimes they just don't know how to create different drum bounces for different genres or how to pick the right sounds, and I'm going to kind of break down some of my advice. But the first thing we have here is an R&B loop. This is from one of my weekly loop kits. I've done 100 loops every single week for like 5 years straight without missing a week. If you hit me up on my social media, you can get those for free. This is the loop. I already just chopped it up into the stems. Now we are going to use that to create a unique drum bounce. So the first thing that I like to do in a lot of my R&B tracks is pick a snare that is going to have some character to it. Now, that doesn't always mean the actual sample. Like, for instance, this rim shot isn't anything like unique. It doesn't have a ton of character. It's a typical rim. But I'm going to throw a big reverb on it. We're going to open up one of my favorite reverbs here. And as soon as this loads, we're going to use the 80s plate. And now with that reverb, now this rim shot has a lot more character. And in addition to that, we might layer another snare. I'm going to layer this one here. This one has like a little vinyl at the end. It's from one of my lo-fi kits. And when we layer this, you hear that little vinyl crackle at the end. A unique snare can really, really help. Also, we're going to slow this down. So a unique snare is like the first step in my opinion. Or a snap, or a clap, or whatever you want to hit there. I like to try to pick something unique most of the time. Obviously, these are not rules. These are just kind of like some of my tips and some of my advice. But there are tons of R&B songs that have different types of drum bounces, and some maybe aren't as unique as others. All that matters is if it sounds good in the end. Next, we're going to lay down like a basic kick pattern. Another thing you can do sometimes is use like acoustic sounding kicks instead of like 808 or like trappy kicks. Or you can even layer them. So like we're going to layer this rock kick from one of my rock kits, which sounds like this, with this kick. And we're actually going to remove this snare from the rock kick. That adds just like a little more character as well. Like just removing that layer from just one note really helps. Another thing as well is perk loops. Now this loop here already has a perk loop, like a filtered little drum section on the bottom to help establish some bounce, which is what I'm just soloing right now. If it didn't have that, I would probably add one of those or create my own. The easiest way to create one of those is just open up an FLP or open up a project and just make a drum rhythm, and then on the master just filter it, or you can go ahead and resample it and chop out some of the highs, like however you want to go about doing that, or just to like filter it, you know. And I think that's a key thing that can really help establish bounce. Next thing I do, I'm gonna get a hi-hat. Again, not picking like a classic trap hi-hat, although there are tons of R&B songs that use those and they are okay to use. But we're gonna use this one. It has a bit more character to it. A bit more lo-fi. Also got some acoustic character to it. I'm gonna keep it really simple. The key to like complex drum bounces or like more unique drum bounces isn't necessarily to make them super complex. It isn't to show off every little rhythm that you know in one drum pattern. Sometimes that works, but a lot of times when it comes to making R&B stuff, you want to leave room for the vocalist because they want to add layers and layers and layers of vocals. And if you add too much, they can't do that. But of course, obviously you want to keep the drums interesting as well. So we're going to add like this open hat right in the intro like that. Or we might even add it there too. We'll see. Another thing is don't be afraid to pitch the drum sounds. Like this up here is very bright. I want this to have a bit more of a darker R&B tone, so we're gonna just pitch it down a little bit. We're also gonna just put the envelope on this so it cuts cleaner, and that way we can then reduce the length of the open hat. Now finding like unique little perks is another way to massively increase the uniqueness. We're just gonna go through like this, just kind of add some perks. Just like that, we got a more complex, more unique pattern with just those perks, but there's still a tons of room for an artist on this. Another thing I like to do in a lot of my arrangements when I do R&B stuff is I like to have a section where there is like a snap or a different snare going. This is just something that I like to do. You don't necessarily need to do this, but I think it's just a great way to add some variation. We're just gonna throw reverb on that. That's just a great way to add some variation to a drum bounce without like fully having to overcomplicate things or adding like a whole separate A and B section that just might be more than what's necessary. Just changing it from a rim shot to a snap, or pulling certain elements in and out, or even like changing the hi-hat sound. Like I've seen a lot of R&B songs do that recently, where they'll have like a more acoustic sounding hi-hat for a certain section, and maybe like a trappier one for a different section, and that can sound pretty cool as well. But we're gonna go ahead and just kind of get started on this arrangement here. So we're gonna have a 4-bar intro like this with our tag.
Get the camera, Zach.
We're gonna just put that on a track, and then we're gonna bring in the snap and throw this little dropper effect, and we're gonna pull out the perk loop and the snap a little early. That's another thing you can do, is like to make things more complicated, like pull things out early. Like for instance over here, we're gonna chop that like that. Just by getting rid of those 4 bars, it makes things a little more unique. And when it comes back in, it'll sound even cooler. We're gonna take this rim shot and we're gonna pitch it down a little bit. Just like that, we have our finished beat, and it's just got a more unique R&B drum bounce than what you would have like initially had. And these are just some tips. I mean, I'm sure there's so many different things you can do to get unique bounces, but those are some of the ones that I use on a fairly consistent basis. So hopefully that helps you guys. Can't wait to hear what sick R&B stuff you guys are making. Keep it up. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in another video. Head on over to elizabethrecords.net if you'd like to support me. You can purchase VST expansion banks, drum kits, loop kits, and MIDI kits that'll level up your production there.